What's going on, guys? Dr. Andrew Fix back for another episode here on the Code. And I've been doing a pretty good job of batching these podcast episodes. So I'm really excited to say we've got an awesome interview lined up for you today. It's been a little while since I've done one of these. And we've got Lesley Logan joining us. She's a fellow podcaster herself. She has an awesome show called Be It Till You See It. So be sure to check that out. She and I actually did a podcast together a few months ago that just recently released on their show, episode 433, where we got into talking about addressing pain and our mindset around that and how we can set ourselves up for success down the road. But super stoked to have Lesley here on the show. She is the founder of onlinepilatesclasses.com. She's a Pilates instructor herself. She's a fitness business coach and she leads a huge community of people. And we're excited to have her on the Code. Lesley, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Dr. Andrew Fix. I'm so excited to talk with you again. And I had so many people reach out to me after the episode, really loving how you were qualifying pain and like you gave them an understanding about like, oh, what is the quality of life that I have right now and making changes. So it was really cool to see my followers really resonate with you. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks for having me again on your show. And I think those of you that are tuning in, listening to this, as I always tell you, appreciate your time, however you're hopping on this podcast, spending your time with us. But I think they're going to resonate with what we're going to get into today too, because I think so many people, whether we want to call it lack of confidence, imposter syndrome, whatever terms we want to use, I think they'll really resonate with this concept of being it till you see it. But before we get into that, Lesley, will you do myself and all the listeners a favor and just more thoroughly introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you and your background?
Yeah, so I live in Las Vegas now, but that's not I'm a California girl born and raised and I still every day am shocked that I live not in California because I really love the beach. But I stumbled upon Pilates accidentally, I will really say. Someone invited me to a class and I said it was a BS workout. It couldn't do what it said it was going to do, but I needed a friend. So I went to the class and prior to that, I've been an athlete, like I was a competitive
Hmm.
athlete. I also had been certified as a personal trainer. Like, so it wasn't like I've never worked out before. I've worked out most of my life. My dad was an athlete. So to go to this class and feel parts of my body I never felt before, it shocked me. I was like, but I know how my muscles.
Mm.
I studied, I took anatomy, took biomechanics, like I got this, right? So I felt parts of my body I never really felt before. And I felt what it was like to be in my body. And I can tell you now that I didn't articulate that to myself. I did feel what it was like to feel parts of my body I never felt before, but I didn't actually understand that what I was feeling as well was just like being present and a mind body connection. When I left, I had that dopamine high. I was so excited. I was like, yes, I got to change my life. I'm going to do Pilates every single day. And I did. And what happened is the more I did Pilates, the less aches and pains I had from running competitively. I was actually feeling even stronger at the gym, doing my regular workouts there. And I was also starting to pay attention to what I was saying to myself, which is like, I don't actually like to live
Mm.
here. And that was like a weird, like to hear myself say that and that thought, like, oh, I don't like to live here. And then like, because I had that thought and I went to work and when I answered the phone, this girl was like, hey, Les, I just want you to know I put my 2 weeks notice in and she had the exact same job I had, but at a different store in a different city. And I was like, oh, I want, do you think I could transfer to your job? She's like, I think you'd love it. So I literally called our bosses and I was like, I want to move and I want to take this job over.
Hmm.
Like, you want to move? And I'm like, yep. This morning I realized I don't like living here. And so what happened is that the more I did Pilates, the more I got to know myself and like what was on my mind. Cause we were so busy. And so then in 2008, I became a Pilates instructor when everyone was like, quitting cable. I just got so busy teaching. And that's kind of like the one domino effect, like tile down after another because of my experience in retail, because of my background that I studied in college. I actually started running people's studios. I started coaching businesses. I actually got to study from one of Joseph Pilates' clients because he
Mm.
was down the street from mine. So then I became this really sought after instructor because of my connection to the founder of Pilates. And that is how I started to go around the world doing what I do. But where the
Awesome.
podcast came from and where we're going to talk about Be It Till You See It is I kept having people ask me how I'm so confident all the time
Hmm.
and how like everything I touched turned to gold. And I was like, are you kidding? I'm scared. most of the time. I am like constantly thinking things. I'm wondering if I'm doing the right thing. I don't. So what are they seeing? Like what's going on? And I heard Amy Cuddy talking on her TED Talk.
Mm.
And TED
Hmm.
Talk was about how if you stand in the power stance and the Wonder Woman stance for 5 minutes, you will, it's proven scientifically that you will actually appear more confident, you'll feel more confident. They literally had people sit with poor posture for 5 minutes and go into an interview, and they had people stand in the Wonder Woman stance for 5 minutes. And the people who stood in the Wonder Woman stance either scored better for the interviews or felt better about it. And then the people who sat with poor posture did worse on interviews and felt bad about it.
Hmm.
And someone had sent me that podcast, that TED Talk, and they're sending it to me because they're like, most people can't stand in the Wonder Woman stance for 5 minutes. I said, no, they'll lock their knees out and they'll faint. But what she said later in that TED Talk was that she had a head injury, and she felt like she didn't belong in the classes that she was in. And she had a professor
Mm.
say, well, what makes you think you don't belong? What does belonging look like? And she said, well, this is what a student who belongs would look like. And he's like, okay, why don't you do that every single time you're in class? And then she fast forward, she now is a professor at a university, and a student says the exact same thing to her, and she gives the exact same advice. And she says, it's not about faking it till you make it, it's being it till you see it. And when I heard
Mm.
that, I was like, that's what I do. Because I don't believe in faking it till you make it. I believe in, if I knew what to do in this situation, what would I do? If I knew how to be, if I knew how to be a confident CEO who like ran a business, what does that person do? What do they worry about? How do they do this? And then I take action, I take messy action. And that's what being until you see it is. So that's kind of
Uh,
a long answer to your question of how we got here. That's how we got here.
yeah, man, I love that, and I want to unpack some of that. For those of you that don't already know, Lesley just talked about an author, speaker, Amy Cuddy, and she has an awesome book called Presence, and that's what you were just talking about. And the whole concept, you guys, is that our how we carry ourselves, our body language, can impact how we think, how we feel, and whatnot. And it is so true. Like, and obviously that relationship goes both ways, right? It's a two-way street. How we think and how we feel and how we talk to ourselves impacts how we position ourselves. And how
Yes.
we position ourselves can impact how we talk to ourselves, how we feel, how confident we are or not, or how confident we appear to the other people that we're around.
Yeah.
In that Wonder Woman stance, just kind of standing there with your hands on your hips and chest proud, compared to, like you said, sitting in poor posture, kind of closed in, not really welcoming any conversation or anything like that. There's a big difference. And if you were to see somebody in those two different postures, you would probably feel different about those two people. So,
Oh,
yeah.
people, I mean, like, I try not to look at people at the airport because I'll see the poor posture and I'm like, I just want everyone needs to be doing some Pilates in here. But my husband's like, look at that guy's head is over there. And I'm like, and there's a different connotation of like what is going on with that person. And it's not because you choose to be a judgmental person, it's just how we're taught that
Yeah.
this is what confidence looks like and this is what sadness looks like. And I don't, and the thing is like I was lucky enough to study a class, an anthropology class in college, and there are certain facial expressions that no matter what language you speak, we all
Mm.
make. They're all the same. And I really do think that strong, confident stance versus a slouch stance is also part of that. It's body language that trans, it trans, whatever the trans is, it's going to go all the way across to other, translates to other cultures, no matter what the culture or religion or language is, because it's just body language. So yeah, I hope people stand in the power stance, but also, you know this too, like you said it just now, how we talk to ourselves. You work with people who are working on getting stronger, overcoming injury, preventing injury. And if they
Hmm.
are like saying, I can't, it's not like the body goes, let me show you. You can't.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't go rogue.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. The mind has to tell the body what to do, not really the other way around. And I think that's in some respects, that's where some of these amazing, miraculous stories come from, where like a physician tells someone that they're never going to be able to get back to X, Y, and Z because of the significance of, maybe the spinal cord injury or the whatever catastrophic event that happened. And then they defy all the odds and they're able to get back to doing things that no one expected them to. Well, they were probably having a ton of positive self-talk, and there's no way for me to prove that, but I would be willing to bet if you ask those people that have gone through those experiences, that's probably going to be part of their story, is
Yeah.
they just believed that it was going to happen and they continued to work towards it. As opposed to if you truly believed that it wasn't going to happen, you probably wouldn't work towards it very much.
Yeah.
Um, Now, one thing that came to mind for me when you said you said you listened to Amy Cuddy speak,
Yeah,
and
it was a TED Talk. Yeah,
oh, a
that's
TED
right.
Talk.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
she said, it's not fake it till you make it, it's be it till you see it. And
Yeah.
what that sort of, and then you talked about like, I believe this until I actually see it take place. That kind of reminds me of, I don't know if you've ever read the book Peak by Anders Ericsson. The subtitle is Secrets from the New Science of Expertise. And basically, the whole idea behind this book, and I know like James Clear and other people have had similar things that have come off of this, but Anders Ericsson wrote this book like years ago, and it's called Peak, and it's basically about this concept of deliberate practice, right? Like intentionally practicing something for the purposes of improving at it. And I always use the example with clients about like, if we're going to do these exercises, we're going to do these rehabilitative things, like we're doing this for the purpose of getting back to X, Y, and Z. We're not just going through the motions, right? If you were a basketball player and you were going to have a goal to try to get better at free throws, which is not really a good goal. It's pretty broad. You'd want to make that goal more specific in the first place. But like if you wanted to improve your shooting percentage on free throws, you wouldn't go to the gym and just randomly huck up free throws. Like you would go through a specific process, you would go through your routine, you would very intentionally practice these free throws. You would probably practice them in different situations, some when you're fresh, some when you're fatigued, some when you've been breathing heavy to stimulate, like you've just been
Yeah.
playing in a game, some with distraction and all this other stuff. You would very intentionally set this up so that it would carry over to the game scenarios when it actually matters. Like you're not just there kind of going through the motion. So that's kind of what comes to mind when you compare the two of be it till you see it compared to fake it until you make it.
Oh yeah, I think I guess, whenever I heard fake it till you make it when I was like a kid. I think even my parents probably told me they thought they were probably being helpful. And then I'll never forget like Martha Stewart had her own version of The Apprentice, and someone said, "Well, we're just faking it till we make it." And Martha Stewart was like, "We don't fake anything around here." And I was like, "Oh, okay, that's not a good thing, right?" So, but fake it team, it's like kind of like it is going through the motions. It's like hoping for the best. It's like throwing something at the wall and seeing what sticks. And
Yep.
that's fine. If that gets you out of bed or that gets you going, that's fine. But there's a lot of talks about people can't really be what they've never seen.
Hmm.
And so being it till you see it to me is like knowing where I want to go and how I set up every goal. And I'm sure you do this even with your clients and your patients. It's like, where are we going? What's the end thing?
Hmm.
What's the how do we want to feel? What's the end result we want? So you got to see that. And then you work backwards, but you have to take a step as if you are doing that. And then what happens is you start doing the things that a person who would have that result would be doing, and over time the finish line I want to be at and my day to day, because like one day they just happen, right? And so
Yeah.
that it gives me, first of all, I feel like it puts control back into the person who wants its hands, because I'm not waiting for the day to be deemed a really awesome X, Y, or Z. I'm
Yeah.
not waiting for someone else to gift me or grant me with this opportunity. I am making the things happen. And you start to realize that you probably knew more than you did or you're giving yourself credit for. Sometimes we actually have a lot of the things that we want, but we've put ourselves in a position like I don't know enough.
Yeah.
I'm not good enough, I'm not fast enough. So we actually put ourselves further away from the finish line than we are. And then we don't really take the steps to do that. For example, I'll just start like at the gym, right? If you're someone who is unsure about working out, you think you're unsure about working out, you're not really sure what to do, you go to the gym and you get on maybe a piece of cardio equipment and you just do that and you're like, okay, I went to the gym.
Yeah.
But if you actually were like, okay, I want to actually be able to lift my body weight, I want to squat my body weight, I want to press my body weight,
Yep.
you're not going to get on the cardio equipment right away, because you're like, someone who does that would pick up the weight that they can. And so
Yep.
you start from there. And so you actually set yourself up from a better starting line.
Hmm. Yeah, I like that because set yourself up from a better starting line. Like, what type of a race are we running? What type of a trajectory do we want to set ourselves on? And I like what you said about like, you will start, when you know what outcome that you want to achieve, you start doing the things that a person who has that outcome would do. And so many times, I think we've probably all been guilty of this. We're just going through the motions. We're just living our lives on autopilot, hoping and waiting for the one day when hopefully we get to that thing we wanted to do, but we're not really being very purposeful about what we're doing in the meantime, the stepping stones, small goals and things to try to help us get there. Yeah, and I like what you said that sometimes it's, we sell ourselves short on like how much we know, how much we can do or whatnot, because we just don't believe it ourselves. And something you said at the beginning, Lesley, was that other people will ask you like, well, how do you have so much confidence? And you're like, well, I'm actually nervous to do these things, but what are they seeing? So talk to us about that a little bit and like sort of these comments or these questions that you've fielded from other people. And how do you think you've developed this appearance or this persona of like, you are a confident person when you stand up and talk to people, but that you've had to battle some of that yourself because that wasn't exactly how you always were.
Yeah, no, I mean, I still like even getting ready for things I do all the time, sometimes like you just have a nervous energy about it. You're like, I don't know, like why did they want me to do this episode? Like what you start to tell yourself different stories. And so
Mhm.
first of all, um I I really am grateful that I spent a lot of time as an athlete
Mhm.
because when you are doing sports as a kid, even if you suck at it, like there is a motivation that we're going to go out there, we're going to win this, and we're going to, and like, and my dad was very much a coach of like, if you acted like a team who could have won, and even if
Mhm.
you lost, then you won. And if you act, and he would ask me like, okay, we lost, like, did you play the best you could? And if the honest answer was no, then of
Yeah.
course, like that's what it is. And so that was frustrating as a child. But what's been really cool is like, I go into everything going, okay, I'm nervous, but they chose me. They asked me to be here. People signed up for this.
Mhm.
They saw this in me. This is what they want.
Yeah.
So I owe them for taking the time, the energy, and believing in me to do this. And I can be nervous as much as I want, but I have to, this is showtime. And I think people get in their heads and they forget that like there was someone who believed in them. And even if you weren't hired to do the job, maybe you created the job. If people signed up to come, they believed in you. They thought, okay,
Yeah.
this is the person who said they could do this. So if you go back to like, what is the thing that they signed up for? What is the thing that you were hired for? And you just do that. If you focus on that, it actually really helps you go like lean into your strengths
Yeah.
and the nervousness goes away once you get started. Like
Mhm.
it's kind of like if you've run a race, you're kind of nervous before the gun goes off and then you go when and then you start running and it's like, oh, hold on, one leg in front of the other. We just kind of
Yeah.
keep going. I think a lot of people stop themselves before they start.
Mhm.
They have these doubts or they turn things down. If somebody wants you for something, you can certainly go, oh my God, so nice of you to think of me. What are you expecting from my talk? What are you expecting from this? If you don't know, if you're like practicing this confidence, ask people, oh, I would love to know why you thought of me.
Mhm.
Because what they thought,
Mm.
I'm not gonna guess. That's what they want. That's what they want.
Yep.
So an example of this is I was actually in Colorado in 2018 and for an event. It was the first of its kind. It was this big Pilates like festival and I had 85 people signed up for a class of mine. 85 people.
Woo.
And my husband was there to film stuff to sell the next year's, right? So he was hired to do all this filming and he was setting up my microphone, which before we hit record, you got to see my husband set my microphone. It's a constant thing. It's part of his resume. So he set my microphone and I'm like, oh, is this microphone on? And he goes, no. And there's like 85 people getting their mats out. And I was like, I'm really nervous. And he's like, what are you so nervous about? And I was like, well, there's 85 people in here. And he's like, how is that different than when you teach? Like, what is that? How does that make that any different than when you teach 35 people? And I was like, oh, I think, and like, so it was a moment where I was like, we make ourselves nervous about things.
Mhm.
We talk ourselves out of amazing opportunities all the time because we think we're not ready. But somebody thought I was ready.
Yeah.
The person who hired me for the job, the 85 people who wanted to take my class. So I think, one, you got to know where you want to go because it allows you to work backwards and take the right next steps. It
Hmm.
also lets you see opportunities that will take you to where you want to be,
Yeah.
right? Like back to that story about me moving, I had that thought, I don't want to live here. And then when I heard the girl say she was putting her notice in, if she'd said it the day before, I'd be like, oh, I'm going to miss you so much.
Yeah.
But she said it on that day. And I was like, oh, that is a job I can do in a different city. So
Yeah.
I think it really helps to know where you want to go, but we have to stop playing ourselves so small.
Hmm.
We have to stop listening to stories from other people. And those stories are the stories that you're a doctor, like going back to what you do. If a doctor says, oh, you'll never walk again,
Yeah.
that really does make it difficult, doesn't it? Because that
Yeah.
person's a doctor, so we have to like be mindful, like whose words are in our head.
Yeah, totally. Whose words are in our head? And um, always some of our words are going to be in our head. So like, what are you saying to yourself? And I like what you said about so many times we stop ourselves before we even start. No matter what thing we're talking about, running a race, starting a business, whatever, moving across the country, starting is the hardest part of all that, right? It's not
Hmm.
that hard to pack your place up and move. Like it takes time. It's not difficult, right? It's like you just take time to do it. But making the decision and putting the pieces in place, leaving your job, taking the new job, whatever, those are the hard things. Like starting the process is the hard part to all that. Making the decision, having to say the goodbyes, like knowing what conversations are coming up. And just getting to the starting line oftentimes gets you across the finish line. Speaking of which, you mentioned that you think it's been hugely beneficial that you grew up with an athlete background. Tell us a little bit about that. What things did you do growing up?
Yeah, I think like uh I don't think that everyone needs to get a trophy kind of athlete, but I do think like being involved in sports and like challenging yourself and in fun ways and
Hmm.
exploring different things is really great. My grandfather is a professional baseball player, so of course I had to do softball.
Hmm.
Um, I'm left-handed and I don't have really good hand-eye coordination, so I did great. I ended up winning. I played for 9 or 10 years and won many, many championships, but uh probably not because I hit the ball, mostly because I was really good at catching and throwing and stealing bases. I
Yeah.
did basketball for several years. Oh, I wish I was good at basketball. I was also on 2 championship teams. Never ever could make a basket, probably because I needed better glasses. But like, I just, I was running myself. But it was really fun because that sport challenged me to be more aggressive. Like, I can be someone who lets other people go ahead and like I'm just being raised in a household where you're also told like don't brag, don't be humble, like be humble, don't brag, like make sure everyone's invited, make sure like everyone's having a good time. On the
Hmm.
court my dad was like, no, you need to foul her out, like get her out of the game. So like it really helped me like understand like there are times when you don't brag and then there's times where you like take what's yours.
Yeah.
And I did volleyball, I did track and field, and I did cross country. And I really actually thrived in long distance running. It was just a much better place for me. And I ended up doing really, really well in cross country. I made it to states. I didn't win anything, but I actually got myself there. And then I took a break for college and I picked running back up. And in my Pilates career, I ended up finding a big group of elite runners and they wanted
Yeah.
me to train them.
Great.
And so I did. And then they were sponsored by NutriBullet. So NutriBullet hired me to coach them. And then NutriBullet actually wanted more women on the team. I got sponsored.
Yeah.
And
Great.
which is great. And so I got back into professional running for a bit. And my relay partner and we won the LA Marathon.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, and then we came third if you put us with any mixed gendered duets, but as women we won. And I had the best time. I really got to see how fast I could actually push myself.
Hmm.
And I actually had fewer injuries older running than I did when I was younger running. I attribute that to doing the Pilates that I did. But I think like the thing I see today, because my friends have kids, is they all do one sport. That's not great.
Hmm.
You gotta move around and you should move around for a really long time because that I think you probably see injuries of kids who like just pitch forever and they're just a pitcher forever and then they don't cross train. And then two, It's not that you have to get a scholarship. You don't have to do sports to do a scholarship. It just forces you to communicate and interact with people who are different than you all the time.
Hmm.
And, you know, and to work together. And there's different types of sports. There's solo sports, there's team sports. And so I really am grateful that I was forced to try all that. The other thing is I learned how to learn time management.
Yeah.
How am I going to get good grades and be on a team at the same time? And then I was poor, so I had to have a job. And so that really helped me. And I think like when people say, oh, you do so much, it's like, I had to do so much always. So this just feels like a normal pace. But my
Yep.
friends who like all they had to do was focus on school, they got in more trouble and have so much problems with time management and
Hmm.
confidence, you know. So I think that like, I don't know. I think it can be really good for people.
Yeah, I'm with you totally. Like the person that I want oftentimes to do things is like the person that is already the busiest because they're going to find a way to get it done because of what you just said. They've got time management skills, they've had practice doing this and just figuring out a way to get it done. The person who has like nothing to do, they're going
Yeah.
to find a way not to find a way not to do it many times.
Yeah. They have a lot
Now,
on their plate.
now, one of the things that, this idea that you just said, you said, well, I played softball. I wasn't necessarily the best on the team. I played basketball. Well, I wasn't necessarily that good, but I won championships doing it.
Yeah.
Whether it was your own doing or not, probably not as a kid, but you put yourself around a lot of other people that as a team, you guys were very successful. And it's just perfect timing because yesterday, an episode on our podcast, The Code, came out, episode 144, where we talked about how the people we spend our time around really impact who we are and what we become and where we're going, right? Like if you want to be this super successful person, but who you're always hanging around with are, by your definition, not very successful people, it's going to be pretty hard to break out of that mold to become something that none of the people you spend time with are doing that thing.
You are 100% correct. I used to think like, especially in college, because I kind of outgrew a lot of friendships, including some of those people I was on championship teams with. I used to outgrow friendships, and my family like, where are they at? What's going on with them? And I used to go, oh, is that bad that I'm not staying in touch with them?
Mm-hmm.
And it can sound a little arrogant. No, you just outgrow them. And I think a lot of people's problems is they don't let go. And it's not like you have to like block them on your phone. It's just that like, you know, you certainly spend less time and you spend more time with other people. But we've all heard like if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room.
Mm-hmm.
In my circle of friendships now, like I have a lot to offer them, otherwise we wouldn't be friends. But in a lot of areas, I feel like they're so much smarter than me. And on a bad day, of course, I can go, oh my God, like I'm gonna go have a meeting with I'm networking with all of my friends who have these big, huge businesses. But at the same time, one, they invited me. So obviously, again, going back to what I said, they saw something in me and I have to trust that. And then two, I I want to learn from them. I want to be challenged by them. I want to go where they're going. And then eventually we're either all going to go together and we're because we're all evolved together, or if I outgrow that group, it's not a negative thing. It's time for me to be in another pond.
Mm-hmm. It's really no different than my wife Erin. She just had, well, being in a bigger pond is really no different. But she just had a wrist surgery yesterday, so I had the duty this morning of watering her plants at home, and she just recently had to repot these plants because she has been pouring into them, watering them, and they
Yeah.
outgrew the home that they were in, and
Yes.
man, they needed a bigger pot. Otherwise, they were going to be stifled and
Yes.
held down to the size that they could be because they were in too small of a home. Now, is that one of the ways, I would imagine, yes, is that one of the ways that you have found yourself gaining confidence or like getting through this kind of lack of confidence at first or this nervousness is by continuing to push yourself outside of your comfort zone, getting around those people that at first maybe you felt like, man, I don't belong here, but you just keep doing that over and over again.
Yeah. Yeah. I think like something that just came up as you said, like repotting. Like when my girlfriends just moved to New York and everyone and this guy goes, ah, it's good to be repotted sometimes. Like, right. And like the thing is that I to go back to your question, like I actually get I feel very stifled. And whenever I feel like I have nothing to say or I feel really stuck,
Mm-hmm.
I look around and go, where am I playing small? Where am I not growing? What part of me is actually like stifled,
Mm-hmm.
right? because the reality is that the comfort zone is actually quite uncomfortable if we're really honest with ourselves, and that being outside of the comfort zone is scary. Absolutely. I have this nervous energy, but also it's kind of like what could happen, right? There's the idea that we all have six needs. And the first two are certainty and uncertainty. Of course, we like certainty. We like to know the sun's going to come up and we like to know the sun's going to go down. You and I, before we hit record, I was a little upset because it was 44 degrees this morning in Las Vegas. And that is actually not a certainty for October in Las Vegas. It was an uncertain experience and I wasn't ready for it. Yeah, like we don't like that. But we also do crave some uncertainty. We don't want it to be the same thing every day. We don't like Groundhog Day. Like we don't like that. So I find that the more I challenge myself and I'm nervous and I'm kind of unsure and I'm in experimentation mode, it is a conversation I have to have. It's not like I like wake up every day going, let's be something different today. I do
Hmm.
have to like understand the things that come up, the self-sabotage that comes up, but also because I know where I want to go, because
Hmm.
I'm so clear and because I know the impact I want to make and because I'm on this journey, it makes it easier to have that conversation with the nervousness. And I also wanted to say, like, knowing where you want to go and then taking the first next step is all you need. A lot of people want to know all the steps in between. It is impossible. You don't know. You also could have the roadmap and then
Hmm.
they are doing construction on it. And that is what
Yeah.
happens when you drive through Colorado. So, so you have to like be okay with going, I know where I want to go. I'm so clear. I have a clear vision of that. And I know that my first next step is this. What happens is you take the first next step and then the next step reveals itself. And then
Hmm.
the next step. And we have to be okay with that. But we get in our own way. We tell ourselves these stories and we also want to be comfortable, but it is so, if you're really honest with yourself, I bet you are so uncomfortable in your comfort zone.
Yeah, I mean, I know I am. I'm definitely not one of those people who wants to just continue showing up, doing the same thing day after day. And I'm thinking of like the people on our team here at Physio Room. They're not those people either. Like people want to know what's next. What am I working towards? Where are we going? It's so important for us to continue to share with them like what our vision is for the practice. And we want to know what their vision is for the practice to see if those things line up. But
Yep.
like I don't know too many people who literally just want to 10 years from now be in the exact same place as they are right this second.
And also like even for your patients, right? Like they come in with an ache or a pain and like they are finally uncomfortable enough with the ache or a pain to do something about it. They don't want to just feel good a day after they leave and have to come back the next day for year after year for year. What I know about you guys is like you help them with the issue and then you help them beyond the issue because
Yes. Yeah.
it would be terrible if you're like, okay, we're just going to help you manage this pain
Hmm.
forever.
Yeah.
We're going to manage it. And it's going to be the thing we do for 10 years. Like that's, and so it takes people getting uncomfortable enough in their comfort zone to finally reach out and say, I want to deal with this ache, pain, or issue. And then to surround themselves with people like you who are like, okay, here's what we can do next.
Yeah.
And we can see there's possibility for you. And then that makes them want to take the next step, which can be very scary when you have pain or imbalance. It's like, hold on, I don't know. I think we talked about it on my podcast. Like I fractured my tibial plateau when I got
Yeah.
back. So when I was able to actually put weight on it and my trainer gave me an exercise like, oh, that hurts. Oh, that hurts. And he just said to me, is it hard or does it hurt? And I had to ask myself, like, oh,
Hmm.
hold on. Those are two different things.
Yeah.
And it requires putting yourself around people who can see the next step sometimes. Just to go back to like, you can't be the smartest person in every room. And that will
Hmm.
help you take steps that scare you.
Yeah, sometimes you need that guide, that person to help you figure out how you're going to get to the outcome that you said you wanted to get to. Like I literally heard one of the coaches here in the gym ask because this clinic that I'm standing in is inside of a gym, ask somebody that question today. Well, is it hard or does it is it painful? Like does it hurt? She's
Mhm.
like, "Oh, it's just hard." He's like, "Okay, well then let's keep working through this a little bit." The like you said, the process here at Physio Room, reset, restore, reload, like we do want to keep working beyond the problem, right? We don't want to just change the symptoms, mask the symptoms temporarily. Um, and every once in a while, like I will use the analogy of like sometimes we work with people proactively here, right? Like we will work with someone even if they no longer have that problem or they didn't even have a problem, they just wanted to prevent one. And we'll use the analogy of like taking your car in for routine maintenance to make sure it keeps performing
Yeah.
well. However, like from a body standpoint, unless we have a deteriorating condition, like a condition that if you don't do something about it, it's going to keep getting worse. Man, I believe that the word maintenance is bullshit sometimes when it comes to our body. Like our goal is not just to maintain, like what are we
Yeah.
work? Our goal is to keep doing more, keep getting stronger, getting faster, running farther, like whatever the thing is that we want to do. Most people's goal is not just to maintain and stay right there. And I mean, at a certain point, that's important too, because we're all gonna lose muscle mass as we age and whatnot. Like we do want to,
Mhm.
like if I can squat the same amount of weight now, in 15 years from now, that would be a great win. But that's not because I just tried to keep squatting what I'm doing right now. Like I keep trying to get
Yeah.
stronger, and as a
Yeah. My dad's
result,
72 and
yeah,
he deadlifts 300 pounds.
amazing.
Yeah.
Love that.
Yeah. And he's always trying to like get a little bit more. And then people say, oh, you're not gonna like squatting, or I heard someone say they're quite famous, like you shouldn't be squatting more than your body weight when after a certain age, and like you don't build muscle. And I'm like, who are you talking to?
Yeah.
Trying to make people feel good? Or are
Hmm.
you trying to like make people like get worse? Like my dad is gonna try to lift as heavy as he can on barbell days, and he's going to feel his body, and some days are stronger and some days are weaker. And like
Hmm.
also he's curious. Like I saw something on Instagram showing me how because he has knee issues and he refuses to go get surgery, so this is where we're at. And I saw this guy holding the rig to squat so he can get more of the back side of his legs. Because my dad, because of his knee stuff, when he squats, it's mostly on the front. He's not going very deep. And so I was like, hey, dad, like ignore the purple pants and see if you can squat like this. A guy was wearing these hot purple pants, they were amazing. And, so my dad's 72. So, anyways, my dad did it and he loved it. He was
Mm.
so sore the next day. He's like, I can tell I use different muscles. And now when we go to the gym, he's like, that's my squat because I don't want to be so sore. And he's like, and then when it gets easier, then I can get boxes I can stand on and I can hold a weight on a plate and then I can lift weights with it while still holding the rig. Like he's already thinking, how do I get stronger here?
Yeah.
And I think we limit ourselves, we limit our bodies. And when you limit your body, you limit your mind too. Like they
Hmm.
work together. And so I don't know how long I'm going to be on this planet, but I certainly don't want to be bored and I don't want to play small. And like we were given these opportunities
Yeah.
and you guide. And I just want to say, like, we all can be a guide for someone. Every
Hmm.
single person listening here is going to be a guide for someone younger. There's always someone who needs to do what you've done. They need to hear the story you've had. They need that inspiration. And so, especially if you're feeling a little bit alone, like remember you can be a guide to someone and that might inspire you to challenge yourself. And then there's someone who wants to be a guide for you. And
Yeah.
that doesn't mean they're with you forever. They're a guide. They're going to take you across the bridge or they're going to take you to the destination. Then you have become someone else. You need a different guide.
Hmm. Yeah. And I mean, sometimes I think the the fear of like asking for help or the shame
Mhm.
of like asking for help, people sometimes will know, I think, like, oh man, I need a guide, I need to learn this or that, but I don't like asking for help. Do you have any tips or thoughts for people on like how you can get through that? I don't want to say get around it because like at some point I think you just need to get through that and do it. But yeah, what are your thoughts on
It's
that?
the hardest thing. I mean, you have a young kid, so hopefully that's one of the things that you get to instill because I feel like there's generations of people who had to do it on their own.
Hmm.
Because I have to keep kids, so I had to do a lot of things on my own. And for anyone who doesn't understand, means I walked myself home at 6 years old and I unlocked the door and I had to fix my own meals and like take care of myself. So I actually didn't learn how to ask for help for a really long time.
Hmm.
Um, I think like I was forced into some situations, and I think where some people can look where you're in situations where you actually could be asking for help that are already presenting themselves. For example, I worked at a store. There's cashiers, there's salespeople, there's assistant managers. Like if I try to do all those jobs, nothing's going to work. So I had to
Yeah.
ask people to do their job. That's asking for help. You just have to reframe it.
Hmm.
But it also happened to me when I fractured my tibial plateau. My husband now, but then was just like a boyfriend of 1 week. He was driving me, he's driving me to the doctor, and he said, I said, he said, don't worry. Like, I really like helping people. And I said, well, you're going to just have to insert the help that you think I need because I'm really bad at asking for it. And what happened was I had to, for 8 weeks while I was on crutches, I had to ask for help. I had to ask people to open a door for me. I had to ask people to like carry a coffee. Like I had to like literally ask strangers as I'm like coming up to the elevator at the gym where I worked. I had to go, hold the door, please. And then, oh, push this button for me. And oh, do you mind? When people go, oh, can I help you? I had to say yes. So I would say is like the best thing to do is as soon as someone says, can I help you? Your answer is yes. You don't have to know
Mm.
what they're going to help you with. The answer is yes. And then they go, with what? I would honestly just, what the first thing that comes to mind, oh, can you help with this? Can you open the door? Can you carry this for me? Like just try some simple things.
Hmm.
But the other thing that I've just, people want to help. They want to feel useful. People especially like to feel needed because they like to feel seen. And I would just say, if you find yourself complaining, like, I can't do X, Y, and Z because whatever the because is, you need to write, I need this help. And you
Yeah.
need to figure, like, circle it. And that is what you have to ask people. And then the other thing we practice around here, because that was the best thing that ever happened to me, is I started asking people, who do you know who has knowledge or connections here? I want to
Hmm.
work on this thing and I need help with this. Who do you know? So the other, if you're not comfortable asking people around you for help, you can say, who do you know? Because then you're not necessarily asking them. You don't have to feel like you're needy. And often they'll either say, oh, I know how to do that. And then they're inserting themselves. So you're not really bothering them because you gave them the opportunity to tell you someone else. So those are the things I would say, like, recognize where you're really frustrated because that's where you want some help. And then also, if you find yourself in a position where you actually do need help, or people are asking, offering you help, say yes. It all works itself out.
You know what? That concept of like asking people, who do you know, X, Y, and Z? Um, that's actually how we've hired one of our great team members here at Physio Room. And that was a conversation I was having recently about this concept of hiring. Like, hey, who do you know? We're hiring for this position, blah, 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 blah. They might be the person, but it might, you might not want to ask them. You might not know their situation, but they might say, wow, that sounds like something I would like to do. Can I apply to that job or whatever? And that's
Yeah.
exactly like what happened with this team member who's on our team now. And it was just because I was like asking, like, hey, we're hiring for this. Who do you know that might be a good fit?
Every assistant I've hired, I asked people, who do you know who really excels in this? And the last assistant, I was really struggling to hire someone. We weren't getting really good feedback. So I just went on Instagram and I did a story and I said, hey guys, I love y'all. I need an assistant. Who do you know
Yeah, who do you
who's
know?
got these qualities?
Yep.
And people literally sent their friends' resumes to me. It was
Yeah.
so great. And I had a couple people who absolutely I knew who put themselves forward. And I had to be really honest about why, like, I wasn't going to look at them. And that's the thing. Like, yes, you might have to tell people, no, that's not the help I need, but also practicing voicing your needs is really cool. It's quite
Mm.
sexy. It's a really strong thing. Like, being the person who does everything all by yourself is actually really lonely.
Yeah, and I think probably if you were to ask people who are those people, that's probably how they feel too. Yeah, I think I agree with that. And I think back to like the crutches and whatnot, when you said I had to ask other people to hold the door and whatnot, there was a time when I was in college, I spent a lot of time on crutches. I've had a few significant surgeries and recoveries and whatnot. And there was a time where I really like had to pay the price for not asking for help. I hopped around the kitchen preparing this nice college dinner for myself, right? On like plastic plates and plastic bowls and whatnot. But I was too stubborn to ask for help and ask one of my roommates or housemates, hey, Nick, Ryan, can you carry this food over to the other room for me? And I tried to use two crutches and carry this plate of food, and I bumped my elbow on something and literally spilled it all over the carpeted floor. And then I ate
And you couldn't
cereal
even
for
pick
dinner that night.
it
Yeah.
up.
And then I had to clean that up. I could not kneel because this was a hip surgery. So I'm like kneeling on one knee, cleaning up this food off the floor. And then I ate cereal for dinner because I was too proud to ask for help. And
Hmm.
yeah, so anyways, it's a little bit of discomfort that you have to get through to ask somebody for help. But if you ultimately want to be in this better place, like we're not going to be able to get there alone 99.9% of the time. No one's going to be able to do that. So,
It's so funny that we like think that we can. The way that you build strength in your muscles is by making your muscles uncomfortable,
mhm,
right? Like
yeah,
that's what it is. And then that challenges them to produce the things they need to produce it that they're stronger. But
yeah.
we're like, oh no, I'm gonna I can do it all myself and it's gonna make me the best human being. So I think like, that cliche of life happens outside your comfort zone, it shouldn't be one. I wish we all just would get comfortable being there and
Yeah,
encouraging our friends to be there and and realizing like if that is actually really hard for you, the being it until you see it is just actually like taking a step outside of the comfort
yeah,
zone every day,
totally.
just get
It
outside of it.
is. Now we're going to get to the point here in just a moment where you can tell us, how everybody listening to this can find you, and they found this podcast. I'm sure they can find yours, but I want to put you on the spot briefly before we start wrapping up. And you said, I think more than one time, like I do X, Y, and Z because I know where I'm going. And I
Yeah.
want to ask you, like, where sometimes I think it's helpful for other people to hear somebody else describe where they're going, what they're working towards. So, Lesley, where are we going? Where are you going? What is the vision or the big goal that you're making these step by step?
So the broad reason, like the big thing is that I want to create opportunities where I didn't have that for myself. I want to create that for other people.
Hmm.
And that means I gotta build a business that really is successful because then that impact not only changes the lives of what we do, the people who participate in what we do, but it employs a lot of
Hmm.
people. And
Yeah.
I'm really proud that our employees have like built houses off of what money they make for us. And we've had people on our team for a long time. So I'm on, that's what like gets me going every single day. What we do as a company on a mission is, and where we're going as a company is more bodies doing Pilates. And that doesn't mean you'll do it with me, but it does mean educating the public on what real Pilates is, and how it can help you. And that when you talked about I coach businesses, I coach Pilates businesses. Why? Because not everyone will like me. So I'm going to coach Pilates businesses because there are people out there who need them. And I'm an online Pilates instructor versus an in-person one. So it's got to be how, like, I want to make sure that people, no matter how they want to do Pilates, have access to it. And
Hmm.
I want them to have the best access. And it's an unregulated industry. So I put out a lot of content to educate Pilates consumers, but also, which includes their teachers, so that they can be the best teachers that they can be. So again, more
Mm.
bodies are doing it because I believe that when you do Pilates, you connect to yourself. And when you connect to yourself, you can connect more to others. So that's where we're
Yeah.
going.
Ooh, I like it. I like it. More bodies doing Pilates. That in a way it reminds me of our vision at Physio Room is to help the world move better one person at a time. And like you said, that might not be with us. Like if somebody sees our stuff online and that motivates them to go seek out somebody else that lives near them rather than doing an online visit with us, great, because then they're going to move better
Mm-hmm.
and it doesn't have to be with us. Or if it gets them to go start taking Pilates classes or hire a personal trainer or whatever, and they start moving better, great, we're accomplishing our vision. And, we've had a couple people who have like kind of pushed back on that and questioned us, like, well, that vision seems too big. And we're like, no, it's not too big. If anything, it's too small, right? Like, we don't want to just say, oh, we want to help this little town in Colorado. Like, we want to help the world move better. And that doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to grow and have clinics all over the world, but we can have an impact on people far outside of where we physically are located right now. So,
Yeah, yeah. And also, like, you never know. Who
yeah,
knows? Like, to set yourself up for a small goal that you could easily achieve, you know,
too safe.
um, too safe. And also, it's not going to inspire people to work there who want bigger things. And it's also
Mhm.
not going to attract people to come
Yeah,
there who want bigger things,
yeah.
So I think, like, it doesn't just because you set goals doesn't mean you actually have to hit them. And there's this really interesting thing about the process of working towards a goal actually produces the dopamine hormone in trying to do the thing, not achieve the thing. Right? There's a
Mm,
different hormone in achievement. And we all think that we have to set goals we could easily achieve. because that's going to make us feel good. But actually, the process of trying, and I learned that in a workshop on fear, where people like have like of movement, people actually have kinesiophobia, like they
Yeah.
actually have fear of movement, right? And when you work with someone on trying to achieve, like, yes, I'm so proud of the fact that like 2 months ago, like, or maybe 3 months ago, I was able to bench press 125 pounds, like amazing. Haven't done it since, but the thing that I work on every single time I go to the gym is what do I need to do to get stronger? How do I get that moment back? What do I have to, and that makes me feel good. I think we get so obsessed on the finished project that we don't set ourselves up to do a project that's bigger than what we could finish.
Mm.
And I go to Cambodia and there are temples who are unfinished or they didn't finish before the visionary created them. There's a lot of amazing art out there that we all celebrate that didn't get finished before the person died. And we think, oh, what a shame. Not really. They got to do it.
Yeah.
There was a whole thing they were doing, and that there's a process that feels really good. And so I just feel like that person who said that, I kind of want to go, who told them that? Because someone told them that. They didn't come up with that on their own. And we need
Yeah.
like go back in time.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times the real experience is in that journey anyways, not in getting
Mm.
there, right? It's as you know, we live in this place, Colorado, and as cool as it is to stand at the top of a 14 or whatever and look out, what people typically talk about is not the view at the top. It's like they talk about the hike and they talk about the time with the
Yeah.
people and the work that it took to get there. It's like they're not
Yes.
talking about the view. They'd snap a quick picture and then the picture doesn't do it justice anyways. And
Never, never.
yeah.
You were so correct. My husband and I did a hike on the highest mountain peak in South Korea, and it's 6 miles up, and I don't know, like, I don't know, 15,000. It's a Colorado type hike, and I can't believe
Hmm.
we did it. It's not like we hiked when we lived in LA. We haven't hiked since. So it's our first hike in 4 years. We're like, we got this. Anyways, the top is not anything I've described to anybody. It's been like the people who beat us up, like these little old Korean ladies who was like hiked right past me. And I was like, okay, like, it's all about the things along the way and how
Yeah.
there's not a single trash can on this hike. And I didn't see a single piece of trash. You talk about the journey. And so
Hmm.
I think people can just fall in love with the journey a little bit more, but you
Hmm.
gotta know where you're going. And it's never going to be easy, but then we wouldn't do it anyways. We'd have nothing to talk about.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, I love it. Well, um, I know we're coming down to the end here. You've got to go. I've got to go, but I want to make sure we don't do that before we let people know, Lesley, where they can find you. And you guys, prior to getting connected with Lesley, I had not listened to her podcast, but then when we got introduced, prior to being on her show, I started listening to it, and now it's one of the ones that comes up on my like recommended episodes on my app because I've listened to a handful, and I would highly recommend it to you guys. One thing that I really like that they do is they'll do an episode, but then she and her husband will do like an unpacking on that episode where they'll kind of like dig a little bit deeper onto some of the things that the interview went into. And I thought that was a really cool idea. So Lesley, tell us a little bit, tell the folks listening where they can find you online, learn some more about the stuff that we talked about, and we'll let you get out of here.
Yeah, so my name is Lesley Logan and that's my name on Instagram. It's Lesley. If you like Instagram, you can just go to lesleylogan.com .co, lesleylogan.co, and that's going to take you to the podcast. It'll take you to my retreats that I offer if you want to travel the world. And if you're interested in the Pilates that we do, you mentioned at the top of the show, I co-founded onlinepilatesclasses.com with my husband, and we have teachers of all ages on there and body sizes. And we only give you a class a week, so you're not overwhelmed. And we help hold you accountable. We give you feedback on your form. We're the only on-demand platform that will do that. So you can really nerd out about Pilates, and it can be doing, you can also, if you already do Pilates, the studio can be done as homework at home in between when you get to the studio. So yeah, that's where I'm at. Thank you so much. And the podcast is Be It Till You See It. Go listen to episode 433 because you can hear a familiar voice, and then you can hear what Brad and I said afterwards.
Yeah, I thought it was great. I listened to that. I thought it was fun. And it's always interesting to hear what other people think or what they take away from something that you said and whatnot. So, man, I really appreciate you taking some time out of your Wednesday to be here on the show. I hope, as of the recording of this, Halloween is tomorrow. So I hope all of you guys had a great Halloween by the time you're hearing this. And be sure to catch us next time on another episode of The Code. If you've listened to this before, you've heard me say this. If not, you'll hear me say it now. as you can imagine, reviews are a great thing to help this podcast grow and get out to more and more people. So whether this is your first episode or you've been here for 140 plus, please be sure to scroll to the review section of whatever podcast platform you're on. Drop a review on there. And then all my contact information is there in the show notes. If you want a topic or an episode on a certain thing, or you have questions, please send them my way so we can get the right interviews here, get the right episodes out so that you really find value in this show. Lesley, thanks again for being here. I hope you have an awesome rest of your night.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys. We'll catch you next time.